Okay, YouTubers, this is the Angry Prepper. So today's video, we're going to talk about sheltering in place. And obviously this video is because of the situations that are going on seemingly around the country with different factories or plants or trains derailing and spewing toxic chemical either into the air and or the water, or ground, rather, sorry. So the sheltering in place, this video, I've gone over this before. I'm going over this again, and I'm going to use the Ohio train incident as the catalyst for why you would shelter in place. There are many other reasons why you would, and there are so many other reasons why you would bug out. Now, I am almost against sheltering in place unless you absolutely have to, but this video is for people who can't. And there are people who can't, guys. Some people are like, there's no such thing. Yes, you got people who are bedridden, right? Elderly people who can't just jump into the street and start walking a million miles, right? They can't do it. You got people who are severely disabled that can't do it. You got people who have chronic pain, chronic injuries, and they can't bug out. There are people who have kids who are autistic or mentally ill, and you can't take them out of the current environment without them misbehaving, acting up, or throwing a tantrum. Now, granted, if you are evacuating during a situation like this, you're probably going to be able to get them out, whether or not they throw a tantrum or not, because the situation dictates that they need to leave. But in a end of the world scenario, leaving with a child or a person who's going to misbehave, make a lot of noise, bring attention to you when you don't want attention to you, that's going to be the reason why you would shelter in place in that situation. But in this current situation, what we've seen going on, you're probably not going to want to bug out. Now, we're going to go over the type of people that would need to shelter in place. I know I touched on it just a second ago, but again, elderly people. There are so many different elderly people that can't leave. Again, if they're bedridden, if they are hurt, if elderly people are in a wheelchair, you can get them out of that situation, right? Now, we've seen it time and time again in elderly homes where situations have happened where they try to evacuate people and they left elderly people, like if I'm not mistaken, Katrina. A lot of those people couldn't leave, right? And if you were able to walk, you were able to get out of that situation. But at the risk of, not even at the risk, but if you have family members that can't leave, you're not going to do that. You're not going to, like, you guys leave and then I'll stay here with them. You're probably all going to wind up staying here with them unless the situation is a dire, dangerous, extremely bad situation. Then you might have to split the family up. Then you might tell wife and kids, leave, I'm going to stay with dad, right? And then you and dad ride out the storm, whatever that might be. You definitely still should consider a bug out plan for the elderly people. If you have people in your family that are bedridden, you should try to come up with a plan if you can. If you have money, I would almost say get a bug out van and design that bug out van almost like an ambulance to get them out of that situation if you can afford it. If you can't, then guess what? You're sheltering in place. But if you can, try to come out with a bug out van or a vehicle that will be able to keep them comfortable while you get them to point A to point B. That's like a side note. But also back to people, sorry guys, you also have, again, mentally disabled people, people who just can't deal with the outside world and will not deal with the outside world and will not leave their home. Now, granted, if their home is in a dangerous situation like a wildland fire and that firestorm is heading in your direction and they're telling you to evacuate, normally in that situation, you're going to have help to get you and your bedridden elderly parents or even bedridden adult out of that situation. If you have an autistic kid or somebody who's just not used to the outside world or can't deal with the outside world, you're going to have help. Right? You might even have to medicate them to get them out of that situation. And if you can medicate them to get them out of that situation, then do so. Right? Don't be like hard, I can't because, fuck it. Medicate them, get them out of the situation, and deal with their behavior afterwards when you're in a safe place. But for the purpose of this video, if you can't, then you can't. Then you're going to have to do certain things to make the situation as comfortable as you possibly can. Now, before you go into full-blown lockdown mode, assess the situation, right? Look at the situation for what it is before you automatically go into, guys, we can't leave, we're shutting it down. No. Look at what's going on outside. Look at which way the wind's blowing. Look at listen, to what might be in the air, what's going on outside. If it's the super volcano, for example, you're probably going to want to get the fuck out of there, and you're going to have to carry those bedridden people out on your own into the vehicle and out of Dodge, right? But if it's something where you can shelter in place, again, just assess the situation. Don't go in a full lockdown mode where you don't have to. Don't start implementing, plastic sheeting everything and covering windows and getting the gas mask out and going, guys, we're on full lock. Don't do that yet. Assess the situation. If it's bad and it's immediate, sort of like the Ohio situation, then you lock everything down. Then this is where you go in the lockdown mode and you start getting everything prepared for your lockdown, if you will, or your sheltering in place. Now, situations that you might shelter in place would be a nuclear disaster. Obviously, like with Chernobyl, that was a nuclear disaster. People needed to shelter in place. If you are super close to the facility, you're going to have to get out of there. But if you are miles away, but now the roof blew off the top like it did in Chernobyl and there's fallout, you're going to be sheltering in place. If a nuclear device goes off and it's in a major city, but that fallout is heading in your direction, you're going to shelter in place. Bad weather, shelter in place. Chemical spill, if you can, shelter in place. These are the situations where you're going to consider sheltering in place if you cannot leave. Obviously, guys, I'm going to beat this dead horse even deader, but obviously, if you can bug out, bug out. But if you can't, these are the things you're going to have to do. So now, you are trapped in your home. You can't bug out. You can't go anywhere. What are you going to do? Well, before you start doing anything, you got to make sure you have the supplies to shelter in place. Now, plastic sheeting is huge. That's a huge thing. Plastic sheeting is going to help you cover your windows, vents, and even draft areas or draft points in your home, right? So if you got a crack in a wall or whatever it is, or a drafty ceiling, you're gonna seal that up with plastic sheeting or duct tape alone, depends on the size. The plastic sheeting should be pre-cut to every window in your home, and every window in your home should have a number designated to that plastic sheeting, right? So, for example, you go first floor on a plastic sheeting, which actually should be broken up into sections. So you'll have first floor section, front, back, rear, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that'll be like the windows around. So that when you start hitting those numbers, you know exactly what sheeting it is, and you put it to that window and you duct tape it. And when you duct tape the plastic sheeting, guys, you duct tape it on the edges outside of the window. Not right over the window, but right over the sill, if you will. And you give yourself about an inch or two, and then you duct tape over that. You can double it if you want. I think it's a lot of work to double duct tape or double sheet, where you will plastic sheet the window itself against the frame, and then you will go over the outside of the sill, right? That's a lot of work, but if you want to do that, you want to go down that route, by all means. Obviously, guys, if you're a prepper, you have all the other shit that you're going to need. You're going to have water. Hopefully, you have your water containers in the house with you and not in the shed or the barn or storage facility. Have all your supplies in the house with you. That's your water, your batteries, your flashlights, any heating elements if you need in case the power shuts down. Other than that, you don't need much for a sheltering in place as long as the situation doesn't get any worse or it's prolonged. So if it's prolonged, like it's seeming like it's going to be in Ohio, that's a different situation. We'll get to that at the end of the video. Now, after you do all of this, if you have pets that are outside, guys, get your pets indoors. Time is of the essence, but normally in like, let's say, a spill situation like that, you have some time. It's not like or even a fallout situation, you have time, especially if you're like miles away from the city. But get your pets inside. Don't be a dick and leave your pet outside. Get your pets inside. And if you have small livestock animal like chicken, try to get them inside too if you can afford the room. Obviously, guys, if you have bigger livestock and they're stuck outside, they're stuck outside. They're going to wind up dying. Depends on what it is, actually, right? So you already lost that. But if you can afford the other smaller livestock animals, again, like chicken, shit like that, bring them inside. Your pets automatically come inside. With pets, make sure you have a place for them to use the bathroom. I would say get those napkin things that you get when you had puppies, you train puppies on a little sanitary napkin or whatever the hell, not sanitary napkin, sorry, those pet things, disposable pet things that you have them piss on. Make sure you have something like that for your dog to use, because that's going to be the biggest task, is trying to get your dog, first of all, to use that spot. Secondly, to actually have him piss, in the house. Most dogs don't want to do that unless your dog's fucking rambunctious and doesn't give a shit. But that's the bigger factor out of all when you bring your pets inside, is where they're going to use the bathroom. Now, also, guys, when I was talking about earlier about supplies you're going to need, gas mask is good, but you're also going to have to have some kind of chem suit or bio suit to go along with it, because if the shit's in the air and it's getting on your skin and it irritates your skin, but you're not breathing it in, it's sort of a moot point at that point, right? So try to get yourself a chem suit. There's a website called Mirror Safety. I'll put the link in the description section below. Go to their website. They're getting a lot of the gear back in stock. So I would say, for those of us that live in areas where we are prone to train derailments or screwed up or fucked up disasters caused by humans to happen, these are gear. This is gear that you should get, again, if you can afford it. Now, here's the bigger problem. If the situation lingers, meaning, again, what's going on in Ohio is now the water's contaminated. That contaminated water is making its way down the Ohio Basin into the other basins and the tributaries, which are the little branches that it looks like branches from the sky anyway, little branches that branch off the Ohio Basin into other water sources. So there's that to consider as well. So that situation is going to linger for a while. Plus, it's in the groundwater as well. So if the situation, after you shelter in place from the initial emergency, if the situation turns out into a lingering situation, you're going to have to leave. You're going to have to come up with a way to get your family out of that situation. Again, whether they're bedridden, autistic, or just don't want to leave, can't because they have certain problems, you're going to have to figure out a way how to get them out of there and get them out and get yourself to a safer area. Because just because you shelter in place, guys, doesn't mean, oh, shit's all over. No. If it's a lingering effect, which a lot of these, I think the next few events we're going to have will have lingering effects, you're going to have to take yourself and your family and put them in a safer area. Again, guys, I hope this video helped out. I know it was crude. It was to the point. I didn't want to make this longer than it had to be, though it's almost 15 damn minutes long. That being said, guys, hope to help. Thank you for watching.